Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Saturday evening, 5 p.m., and I see about 20-25 people here. So I know it's been a tough day, entire day, about 10 hours of 5 hours, 5 sessions totally, and now the last session. We'll try to make it interesting. The topic of the day is funding the future, trends that will shape up startup investing by 2030. Welcome to this conversation. A warm welcome. And we have Mr. Vamsi Reddy from Kalari Capital. So this is going to be about 20-25 minutes of conversation, followed by a couple of questions that we'll take. And in case you have any further questions, I think he would take it after the session on an individual basis. Now, when we talk about future trends, by 2030, 2032, we're talking about 5 years to 7 years horizon. Are the investors going to chase future unicorns, or are they going to be backing up people, founders who have a sense of purpose in starting enterprises? Will predictive analytics play a big role in investment? Will there be a tectonic shift in terms of how this would pan up in the next 70 years? This is what the interesting questions that I would pose to Mr. Vamsi Reddy, and let's hear from him. Okay? So straight away to the very first question. In your view, what would be the biggest disruptor that you see in a horizon of 5 to 7 years in startup investments?
Thank you, Srinivas, for having me here. And I know it's last few sessions maybe. I think it's just interesting to be in this era of investments from a VC standpoint. I wanted to talk more from an aspect of how we are thinking about investments and how we are seeing companies shape up. Growing up back in 2000, because I think there's a lot of reference to the dot-com boom if you look at what is happening right now. But from then to almost 10 years or maybe 15, 20 years, it took for things to kind of get in place after dot-com boom, basically where things started shaping up and technology evolved at a pace. But it was a very, very slow pace, right? That is what happened really, after the dot-com boom. But what we are seeing right now is that every 5 years, there's a technology disruption that is happening, right? If you just look at post-COVID, the whole thing with what was happening with blockchain, right? And crypto, and there was this whole hype about, not really, I wouldn't call it a hype because it's technology evolution, it's technology disruption which was happening. I think it was just amazing that we thought and we invested so much in that space in 2020 onwards, right? And here we are just 4 years later with another technology disruption which is as massive, right? So I see that the disruptions are going to be much more shorter in that sense and quicker. So it is a very big challenge for us as VCs to figure out where exactly and predict basically, right? Wish we could, and I can tell you we have no answers. And I don't think we have any sense of what is going to happen. And this is where I was having a chat with you earlier, is that, how we do our investments and what goes behind the investments and how we look at the theses and everything is very different from how we make the call about where to invest and where to put the money. 75% is it's still the person who's driving that. The 25% is a variable factor for me at least. It's just always a variable factor about technology or anything like that. So to answer your point, the disruption in terms of tech itself, which we are seeing right now, I think it's just a starting ground. I don't have the answers, but I can definitely tell you that it's going to be much, much faster. So how are we going to make our decisions in terms of where and why and how we want to invest? I think that is the key factor for us.
Very interesting take. He said there would be earthquakes, but the magnitude of earthquake, the tectonic shift is not what we are sure of. Very well said, but having said that there will be disruptions every 5 years, and now we're talking about AI disruptions, we are expecting or hoping that there would be a disruption this is from the perspective of startups, right? So, uh, continuing on the topic now, slightly different. I'm asking this question from the perspective, from the standpoint of a founder. Okay? Purpose became more important than profitability the last decade. But then should startups balance both profitability with purpose in the next decade to attract investors? That means I'm talking about, when I say purpose, I'm talking about startups making enterprises with a soul. Not just the numbers, not just the scale, but enterprises that have a soul. Will that take the center stage when you start when investors like you start evaluating founders?
I think at least we all know in the startup world, the profitability comes later, right? I think I wouldn't call purpose as the core thing, basically, but initially everything starts with a purpose of solving a problem statement. So we always look at, because we are in early stage investors, our bets are much more riskier because we are just looking at, is there a purpose? Is there a problem statement they're really solving for? And what is the validity of the problem statement? What kind of capital does it require? There's so many things you look at it when you're making that investment. Lately, there's been a lot of talk of profitability. I think that's the challenge which we see, that at an early stage, you cannot really be able to solve that problem, basically, right? So thinking from a profitability aspect from day one, I don't think is a way startups would ever work and should not work also. Having said that, I think, do people who are building understand the economics of the model fairly enough and understand all the levers that are there within the business model which can actually be triggered at certain points to push to profitability? I think that is very critical for us, right? So when we are looking really into deep diving into the economics of the model and understanding whether at a certain scale, will they have the levers which they have where they can actually get into a break-even or a profitability, right? So I think everything starts with a purpose. I was just having a conversation with a few founders here outside, and because I've been an operator for almost 15 years, and so have you been, which purpose you choose and what is the timing of that purpose becomes very critical, right? Because everyone wants to solve a lot of problem statements, and everything is a problem statement. The challenge, what I've understood, at least from my experience, is figuring out, are you going to time it right? Because there's certain things very, very important in terms of, we all know that capital raise is very important and critical. And when you get that chance, are you investing in the right space? Are you building the right thing which is market ready? Not just from a very futuristic standpoint, but very near future, right? So I think that most of the times is dependent on the ecosystem, not just you. We might have the great tech to be built, we might have the great ability to build a product, but if the ecosystem is not ready, you will need a lot more money, you will need a lot more time to get there. So I think it's very important to figure that part, and if the ability for the founder is there for him to raise capital, then he's set. But most of the time I find 99% of the founders struggle with that aspect. So that is where the challenge is.
Rightfully, very insightfully said. Yeah, purpose should be served at a particular time. So timing becomes extremely important. And then the potential to be profitable, the levers that they're going to press as they go along, that takes the center stage in terms of evaluation, is what Mr. Vamsi Reddy is telling us, to all the founders here. The next question, of course, is probably a very predictable question and on the top of mind of most entrepreneurs is, how will AI and predictive analytics change the way investors evaluate startups, and what steps do the founders have to take?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I think just in the last 2 months, I've opened up my calendar to everyone, which is thankful to AI, basically. The reason I say that is earlier there were layers, right? You would have analysts, you have principals, you have partners, then there's a process in which you get to a certain point. Not because it is a bureaucracy, but it is because the bandwidth of the people. It is really about the bandwidth, right? So it's not like it's a bureaucrat. There's only so much we can do or look at in a day. Today, the most interesting part, and I feel very excited about, is I'm able to do, I just opened the calendar for 3 days and almost I'm able to do 10 to 12 pitches directly myself without even having an analyst come on board. I think that's very beautiful because I'm able to make that call quickly. I'm able to help the founder quickly understand. Um, and AI definitely is helping me with doing my research quickly in terms of, is this a space? Is this a space where I want to spend time on? The ability of being able to create a business model which can actually make money in this space. And all. So a lot of these things, the modeling aspect, the market intelligence aspect, everything is become very easy for me, where I would have taken a lot more time for me to get to that data, which the analyst would have had to do. So today, it's a very simple process. At least getting to the investors, I think is going to get much more easier. Um, of course, which means that you will be hearing more rejections also faster. So I don't know if it's a good or bad thing because sometimes hope is everything, right? So in this case, you will be like listening to a lot more no's maybe faster. But I think it's just amazing that you'll be able to reach to people faster. You'll be able to get to know things very faster. Um, that should help the ecosystem. So the founders also, I think, will learn to kind of adapt to those situations quickly. Predictive analytics, as I said, and I was having this discussion earlier also, the basis of making a decisions never really at our stage is about the data from what models they build. I think what we test when they build the models is whether they really understand what they've built. Not really about, whether I understand the model, it's whether they understand the model, what they have built. So it's mostly about understanding how they're looking at it, but it is just boiling down to, again, if you put in AI terms, human in the loop is 75% here, not the 10% from a technology perspective where we are. I think, so that will always be the primary aspect. So the calls need to happen, the discussions need to happen. We need to understand the founder, which I don't think is changing.
So AI is just going to be a tool to make it easier in terms of your rigor, but the decision making still remains with the investor in terms of whether the idea would work and whether the founder can take the idea or scale it up, right? It boils down to that. So that fear of AI taking center stage is gone. We still have the human-to-human interaction on this. Now, what should the founders prepare for the future, or how should founders prepare for the future where investors are AI powered and globally distributed? Obviously, when we talk about investments, now it's localized. If you have to go the decentralized route, which perhaps may not happen in the near future, but I'm talking about 10 years horizon. So how should the founders be preparing for that future where it's globally distributed?
I think I'm a big believer in decentralization, actually. I think the ecosystem which has been built from a VC perspective traditionally needs to be completely disrupted, and I think it will be disrupted going forward. I think just from the access with technology and the way we would raise funds also, I think it's going to be opening up a lot more opportunities globally, which can be a level playing field. Today, I think there's a lot of regulatory framework also in place as to, because these are not public markets, right? They're still private markets, and there's a regulatory framework to ensure that the public is protected in terms of how it needs to happen from an investments perspective. So I feel when decentralization happens, it's going to be more beneficial for founders to tap into a lot of opportunities, and so does it for us also as investors. But I think the challenge is always on the regulatory framework, which is going to be opened up more and more. I can see that happening from a government perspective also. So that, I think, is a key in terms of that disruption happening, right? So decentralization can happen, but there is guardrails around it, which I'm sure is going to be removed or at least reduced going forward.
Still a buzzword. Tokenization, decentralization, all that is still a buzzword in
Tokenization,
India
I
at least.
think, is a lot more challenging because, like I was saying, I think one thing we understood when the whole blockchain came into play, and we had to sign contracts to invest. First of all, investors had no clue of understanding what this meant in terms of structures, right? What does ownership mean? What are the structures we need? So I think just that education itself was lacking within the ecosystem, which I think is good that now we had time, and whenever it comes, I think people are getting ready for it. So the ecosystem will be there. But yeah, tokenization, I think VCs also have to do a lot of learning in terms of tech and cannot be just pure investors as such. I think that is a change which you will see. So that's why you're seeing a lot more operators getting into venture capital side.
Nice. This is for any startup founders here, this question. What sectors and geographies in India could dominate the unicorn landscape by 2030, 35?
The best part I feel is that, I think we are starting for a level playing field right now with AI. That's the beauty of it. So every particular space that is there will be disrupted, right? Because just from a tech and user experience perspective. My whole thinking is that the traditional user experience, whether you talk about commerce also, right, that's changing drastically. That will change drastically, right? Voice is going to become very, very dominant. Devices, the way the experiences of the devices right now we see is going to be completely disrupted. And, you can talk about the way Sam Altman is just hiding what he's building, right, from a device perspective, which is completely, my thinking is a voice-driven interface because that is the most critical part. So we had stagnated somewhere from an India commerce perspective also to the more educated and all that. We were not able to break that barrier. I think voice is the biggest barrier which will break that. So, because if you look at, I've come from an OTT background, basically video streaming and all that. Today you have 450 million users who are using video services because there's no language barrier in terms of what you can do and all that. I think voice will be the biggest disruptor in terms of commerce also. So I feel that that is a huge opportunity to build, scratch up, I would say AI. And every product and solution that is out there, if you build natively from an AI stack standpoint, I think can be disrupted. I think that's the beauty basically. So I don't think that there is a one particular space, whether it is talk payments, which is the traditional way which we are doing, or if you talk commerce, which you're experiencing the way you are experiencing, the enterprise solutions, whether it's from whatever the SaaS products we used to think versus what you're thinking from a per seat standpoint in offering now not software as service, but service as software because the products are already out there. So it is not like you're giving the products, you are really building what services you can do for that software. So the whole agentic AI architecture in terms of what you can do, I think it's just a level, it's a ground zero right now.
Okay, you were very politically correct, but if I have to push you to select one sector for the help of founders here, which sector would you bet on 5 to 6 years later?
If I think just from an India perspective,
Yeah.
I think I'm a very, very, I think defense is the play. I think wherever the government and, the localization is there, where the money is there, I think that is where the opportunity is. It's a tough nut to crack, right? Because it's just not about building solutions, but again, building native, ground up, full stack solutions, which is much more challenging, right? Like if, I was just talking to someone, if you're building a drone, can you build the motors? Where are the raw materials coming from? There's a lot more to solve. It is not just about the solution that you're giving, because just from our own protections, everyone wants to build indigenous solutions, and that is where it is key, but which means that every part of the stack needs to be built here. I see a huge, huge opportunity there.
Yeah. So it's now a couple of rapid fire questions for the benefit of, the startup founders here. what would you back? Grit or genius? And why?
Grit always. I think, the genius is initially there, but I think to survive and navigate and build something, it pushes through a lot more things, which is I think just definitely comes with grit.
Very nice. So basically, it boils down to our old adage, old saying, grit is the best. The second question is, what's the one red flag you spot instantly in a pitch?
I
I
think
hope it's not IP.
no. I think what we really look at is, at least what we see is that when we look at the founder's background, and sometimes there's a lot of things that today at least you have access to. So I think a lot of founders really don't say the things right when they talk about their background and history, right? Because everyone is trying to pitch their best. But it's very easy to find out today, even if you just go to a LinkedIn profile and just do a little bit of search while you're pitching, a lot of red flags, which might not be necessarily with them, but just how they've navigated the world, how they've done things in the past. And a lot of those things, I can see that founders really miss and not think through when they come there.
Okay. The last rapid fire. One word to describe startup investing in 2030. This again, you have to play to gallery, not be politically correct.
2030?
2030, yeah.
One word to describe investment. Investment, I think speed.
Speed.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Lovely having you here, Vamsi Reddy Garu. I hope it was very insightful, and we have another 5 minutes left for a couple of questions, but we're happy to take.
Right. So I see one hand go up there, one here. I'll go to the lady first, if that's okay. Right. All yours.
Hi, sir. It's great to hear you speak, both of you. Closer. Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. It was great to hear you speak. I come from a venture capital background myself. So I just wanted to ask, how important is impact as a part of your thesis while considering these AI investments going forward?
I couldn't hear that probably, sorry.
How important is impact in your investment thesis going forward with AI as part of the picture?
Yeah, I think obviously I think we are far beyond in terms of impact basically, right? I think we are I'm not saying it's a smaller problem to solve, but I think it has still not become a core in terms of how we look at investments as such. So it still doesn't fall into the criteria we look at as to whether this is if we give 100 points in the evaluation matrix, does it fall in anywhere in this? No, unfortunately. So, but the sector which I have spent time on, which I've made a couple of investments in agri, right? And there it is mandatory, right? Because we have two companies, both of them are in the agri space where impact is huge. The further investments are coming from impact per se, and it is a mandatory aspect to ensure that that is contributed. So yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. The second question coming your way.
Hello, sir. So my question is, you said the market is very bullish on defense tech. And from a VC point of view, how viable it is to invest in a defense startup, especially in India, considering the transparency and the legal compliances? Like, are we really getting the control that a VC want if we invest in a defense startup? So that's my question.
If the question is whether, we are excited about the defense space, yes. I think the ability for the founder to crack defense is a tough challenge, right? Like as I was saying, it is a very tough nut to crack. But are we building the solutions? Do we understand what they want and all that stuff? If you crack that, I think every VC out there is ready to invest. I don't think there is a challenge with that at all. I see that pretty much everyone is very, very inclined towards actually making that call in investments in the defense space.
Any more questions?
Any more questions? Yeah, that's the last question.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, please. Could you please step forward? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm Vamshi. My question was, this question spanned from another event, actually, session that
Closer.
today.
We can't hear you. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I'm Vamshi. This question was something that spanned in a workshop I was here today. So when you're investing as an investor, when you're investing, especially in new founders who's just started, he has a great idea, good metrics, but a very normal background, not from the top institutes. Would you bet on him, and what all the metrics would you consider before investing in that early founder?
At Kalari, at least I can tell you, I think most of our investments are non-IITs. So just to give you an idea. So no, I don't think we ever look at, the educational background and what they have done. I think the 30 minutes, 40 minutes when you're there, what impact can you make on us, I think is the most important part for us. So I don't think education really is the criteria.
Got it. Thank you.
One more, if that's okay.
The last one, yeah.
One short question, and I promise this will be the last one.
Hello, sir. My name is Balarama Varanasi. I'm an American graduate. You mentioned defense is tough nut to crack, but if there is a promising thing, we will do that like that. I noticed that this Department of Defense has two standards, both technology readiness levels as well as integration definition standards. Our corporates have brought from America these technology readiness level like that. But the integration definition standard, they have not brought from America to India. I need to make like a global benchmarks, Washington Accord and, bring that. There's a investment required, but we see in America, it's like a defense budget 10% goes to technology hubs. It is not happening in India. To present it a proper format, make all the experts and all, there's an investment required. Would that be something? I got Mr. Satish Reddy's, DRDO chairman's card, but I think I need to, like a proper forum, do due diligence rather than like concept notes privately. Would that interest your capital firm to organize an event like that?
We definitely have events which we do in specific deep tech sectors and help the ecosystem coordinate that. I feel, Aditi, Hitex and all these platforms have been given to get access to, the network to actually evaluate and explore these things, right? Now, they're still at an exploration stage, like you said, and are the investments coming in at that stage? I would say yes and no, because most of the people are looking at some validation to happen before even kind of being able to jump in and make those investments.
Just a quick extension, all department startup opportunity, Hyderabad and Bangalore are the most common things and all. I want to extend some kind of hybrid enterprise. The opportunity I want to take to the startups from all the colleges like that. To build such an infrastructure, would that interest you?
We can talk, but
Sure.
I think it's a little different question, but more than happy to chat up, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So to sum up what Mr. Vamsi Reddy Garu has told us, very insightful. We're talking about disruptions happening more frequently, and the magnitude and the type of disruption is right now unpredictable. Sectors are all level playing, but if you have to bet on some sector here in India, he's talking about defense sector. Right now, decentralization and tokenization is not in. It's probably a decade more later, so we can park it for the future. Purpose is important, but then the timing also is equally important. He would bet on grit always more than genius. And flags are always the founders. That's where the flag is. And one word to describe startup investment 2030, he says it's speed. Lovely having you, Vamsi Reddy Garu.
Fabulous. Ladies and
Great
gentlemen, put your
having
hands
session.
together
Thank you so
for
much.
Mr. Srinivas and
Thank
Mr.
you, guys.
Vamsi.